Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our review of the Champions League, League Phase, the Phasening, subtitle Part 7, the penultimate round. This round of matches wasn't very pretty for Man City and it wasn't bien for Paris Saint-Germain. Arsenal's trip to the San Siro saw Gabriel Jesus leave a hero, while Marseille didn't get their way when Liverpool took them to school. My name's Ryan Bailey, joining me today. Hello, Taylor Rocco, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm trying to figure out which letter in the word phasening we turn into the 7. Is it the I at the end? Does that become the 7?
It's just a silent 7 at the start.
No, 7 phasening. All right, cool. I'm into that.
Yeah, I think that's how it's. We'll decide on the nomenclature later, but we've got it pretty well branded at this point, I'd say.
That was phenomenal. Nicely done by you.
There we go. Graham Ruffin, hello. How are you?
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I am personally looking forward to what next week is going to be branded when there are 18 games on at the same time. Looking forward to that.
A usual weekday for you, I think.
Yeah, it's actually a light workload for me. That's what I meant. What did you guys think I was talking
about? How many screens do you actually have in your home, Graham, and how many will you have on simultaneously?
Oh man, that's a good question. So there's 4 in this room that I'm sitting in just now.
Too many.
There's 1 downstairs, 1 in the kitchen, 1 in the TV room. So like 8 or 9, and then phones, I guess, and iPads. So like we could cobble together, I think, like a solid 13 screens.
iPads. Are you a multi-pad family, Graham?
Well, I mean, I've got an iPad, and then Sophie's got the unbranded cheap version.
Gotcha.
Until she's 16, and then she might upgrade to the Apple one.
Very good. Only one TV in the TV room. Controversial.
Yeah, well, that room isn't my room primarily, so if I had it my way, there would be at least 5.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. Joe Lowry, hello, how are you?
I'm great. I was still thinking about where do we put the 7 in the phasing. I think the I is one option, Taylor. I wrote it out. You could also maybe sub it in for the S, which in my head phasing is just with a Z every single time because that just feels right. So that fits on my list as well. We could put it in for the S, but it's got to be one of those 2 spots. I also think Graham. I don't think Graham has a lot in common necessarily with the people that I associate watching NFL Red Zone, but Graham was built to have one of those 4 TV setups in his living room where it's just all one big screen, but then you can flip a button and all of a sudden it's 4 individual games. I think Graham and the person that is watching Red Zone all day Sunday, they actually would get along just so well. It doesn't matter what else they have in common. This would bind them together forever.
Yeah, I agree. Occasionally someone drops one in the Discord. Does Sean in the Discord maybe have a 4-screen TV? Or maybe it's work or something?
Maybe.
And I'm always very jealous. I need to upgrade my setup. That's what I need in the TV room, Ryan. That's what I need to sell Lucy and Sophie on. I'm sure they'll go for it.
I've never been to Graceland, Elvis Presley's home, but there's a room in there where he had like 4 TVs lined up, and that was like the height of luxury at the time. But they're like these tiny, like 13-inch little black and white,
and they weigh 400 pounds.
Yeah, they could match Elvis on the scale, Taylor. Definitely. At that point.
I've never been to Graceland. I've heard it's not in the best of shape these days. So
I would love to go.
While you can.
Paul Simon did a great album about it at one point. For the nomenclature, by the way, for next week, for round 8, it'll be the Fatening, Two Face, Too Furious.
That works.
Yep.
Why not? Well, why not? Let's do it.
It's Graham's favorite of the Fast franchise, the second one.
Whose isn't? It's Tokyo Drift is number 2, and then that is number 1. Those are the
Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show, by the way, if you'd like to get our bonus content. Where
if you want more of this, go over there.
We've got bonus episodes, of course, bonus video, and access to our aforementioned Discord, where all the cool kids are hanging out. It's the best way to support us, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. We have a lot of soccer to talk about from round 7 of the Champions League phase. Why don't we start off at San Siro, where Arsenal dished out a 3-1 victory over Inter. Good bounce back for Arsenal from that disappointing weekend draw with Forest. 7 changes from that game. Gabriel Jesus putting the Gunners ahead with his first Champions League goal since 2023. He got a brace in this one. And Victor Gyökeres adding a late third for Arsenal, making it 7 straight wins in this competition. Arsenal are guaranteed a top 2 finish now. Inter, they're 1 point outside automatic qualification. We'll talk about the permutations for next week a bit later on because there's a lot of them. There's going to be a lot of movement next week in that table. But, Joe, what did we feel about Arsenal's performance here? It was a deserved win, obviously.
I think it was. Although Inter weren't bad in this game, I really don't think that maybe the match was quite as lopsided as the final score indicates, but that also could just be my Inter soft spot coming up again. But maybe I'll talk about them more in just a second. I think Arsenal were deserved winners. The big takeaway, Ryan, you got to a little bit of this in your opening of this game, is that Arsenal did this and put in a good performance with 7 changes to Mikel Arteta's starting 11. The depth of this Arsenal team is so absurdly impressive to me that there's plug and play at so many different spots against a legitimately good Inter team, like a team that made it to the final of the Champions League last year, a team that is, I think, still probably at least something of an outside shot to make a deep run in this tournament. That they're getting production all of a sudden from Gabriel Jesus as he just pops his way back into this team, that they're getting all of these performances from these players. I thought Mosquera was quite solid in the middle of the back line. At least he didn't get embarrassed in this game against a really good strike partnership. You sort of had plug-and-play performances almost across the board. Now, I don't think Arsenal looked quite as good with this group as they do when they've got their full-strength lineup on the field. But still, that they created chances in various different ways, that they create chances on set pieces, that they do it in open play. It all feels very plug-and-play for this Arsenal team right now, and that they're sort of cruising across multiple competitions, maybe this past weekend, not totally withstanding. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with this group.
Joe, question for me. When you say you're impressed with the depth, like, ultimately, does that not just mean that, like, you're impressed with how much money they've spent?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so yes and no, I guess. If we're going to be very simple about it, yes, that is a huge part of this. You don't acquire this much depth at this level without spending an absurd amount of money. There are other teams that have spent a lot of money, see Liverpool, and who are less functional, right? So we'll talk about Liverpool later. I thought they played well yesterday. But there are levels to this, and Arsenal have spent a bunch of money. Yes, of course they have. That's life, and they've spent it well. At least it seems that way to me.
I would agree.
Very good.
Nice.
Maybe, Joe, I might have painted it as being a comfortable Arsenal win. As you mentioned, it wasn't, because Inter had a lot of chances in this one. Particularly, I thought in the first half they had a few where they definitely could have made more of a game of it, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that came through that front two that I mentioned. While Saliba and Mosquera hung in this game, it was not a coincidence that Inter had Thuram up against Mosquera, where if you're going to have to target one of those guys, he's the one that you're going to target. Thuram is a hard player to move, like a really, really difficult player to move. And so in this game, you had a lot of man-to-man matchups in midfield, which meant there wasn't a lot of space for Inter's midfield three, also not their first choice midfield three. So Arsenal were the only team that rotated, though they did rotate far more. There wasn't a lot of room for Inter's midfield to actually play, which is something that we're so used to driving this Inter team. It's Bastoni, and it's the midfield three, and it's Martinez occasionally dropping in. Those are the players that drive the game. That wasn't really true in this game because Arsenal purposely took that away. But Thuram was the outlet, and there was a lot of playing into Thuram to break the press or to go through him to send runners around him and then to go from there. And it was really clever from Inter how they used Thuram up against the weak link probably in that Arsenal back line. And it still didn't break the game for them. And I want to give Mosquera credit for hanging in the way that he did, as I mentioned already. But Thuram, with the strength that he has to be able to open up the game a little bit for Inter, mixed with some of the clever buildup that we saw on their goal, that makes it 1-1. Like, this was a real game for a lot of this game. It's Sucic who gets the goal in the 18th minute. And it's not the Route 1 stuff that defined a lot of this game for Inter, which is unusual for them, again, to be clear. But it's them using some really clever positional rotations from Zielinski and Bastoni to break through the Arsenal press that they'd struggled to break through for a lot of this game. They eventually get the ball into Martinez, who then threads it through to Thuram, and it's a great ball. And then Sucic kind of cleans it up and bangs it home with both placement and power. That was Inter sort of in a more classic sense, where they are using savvy off-ball work and clever, on-ball stuff as well to break through a press. It was both that and the Route 1 stuff. It wasn't enough in this game, but that versatility sort of is still why I have some stock in them, even if clearly they are not in the absolute tier 1 of the contenders in this competition.
Yep. I think Joe has laid it out really, really well, and I would agree with overall his takeaways from this game, because I thought Inter did a lot of what we've kind of come to expect from them, but also at the same time did have a lot of variation in their tactical approach and where their numbers tended to be. Because I think of this team as being a resolute 5-3-2 in defense and clogging the center and forcing you out wide. And they did plenty of that, but then they also at times looked like a 4-4-2. They often had Bastoni stepping up into the middle and tracking runners when they would drop deeper. And it felt like they were just really fluid Inter, but still had a really good understanding of where they needed to be in relation to where their teammates were. When their teammates would step, somebody else would cover. And that's not necessarily groundbreaking, but I think to do that against this Arsenal team with the depth they have and the skill they have is a pretty notable thing to me, and it is why I still have the faith in Inter that Joe seems to have. But it's a credit to Arsenal then that they're able to still find opportunities, still find ways through, and still capitalize on set pieces, which they do is it the second goal? Yeah, the second goal. That's the moon ball to the back post off the corner. But notably, the first corner of this game, they do the exact same setup. They crowd numbers at the back post. As the kick is taken, they kind of flood into the 6-yard box and towards the middle. But it's a near post corner that is somewhat easily cleared by Inter. And the second one, there are even more Inter defenders kind of covering that near post. And then it's the moon ball to the back post, and then they create chaos. And so even there, it's adaptability from Arsenal and awareness of what's happening from Inter that really work to their advantage.
And it's always Trossard. Whenever Arsenal do that, I wrote some for The Ringer like a few weeks ago, and I watched an inordinate number of, it was about kind of set pieces in the Premier League, and an inordinate number of Arsenal set pieces for that article. And Trossard is surprisingly involved in a lot of them, and he always is the one to peel to the back post. And it's difficult to tell because, as you say, Taylor, they'll rush, or crush, depending on what word you want to use, the front of the 6-yard box. But often the delivery will be good enough that the flick on sends it to the back post anyway. But then you've got Trossard at the back post as an option. He seems to be a really good, I think that's an underrated skill of being able to watch a ball come as far as it does from a corner kick and still be able to control it and send it back into the area as he did for the Jesus goal. So, yeah, something that we see from Arsenal quite regularly. Can I, just very quickly, can I do a quick beat on Gabriel Jesus? Because I thought that was one of the big takeaways from this game. I thought this was a really interesting performance by him because it really raises the question of what role he's going to play down the stretch for Arsenal. Because he is probably, in jump in if there's contradictory opinions here. I think he's probably the most rounded centre forward that Arsenal have, in that he has genuine penalty box instincts as he showed in this game, but he's also capable of like absorbing a pass with his back to goal and pinning a defender, which he does, by the way. For that, you see both sides of his game in the sequence that leads to the opening goal. But he can also receive passes in tight spaces. He makes good runs. Not always for himself as well. Like, he's quite unselfish with his runs that will create space for his teammates. He's got a decent turn of pace. He can dribble. And so I look at the other options, and Gyökeres is a bit of a battering ram centre forward, as we saw in this game. That's probably his best moment, actually, in an Arsenal shirt, that goal to make it 3-1. And then Kai Havertz, who is a little bit more of a facilitator. He has a lot of the Gabriel Jesus things, but maybe doesn't have like the sharp penalty box instincts that he has. So a fit Gabriel Jesus might actually move the needle for Arsenal in just becoming slightly more proactive in the final third to get themselves over the line in all the competitions that they're in this season.
I completely agree, and Jesus was good in this game, both in his actual work in the box, and I thought some of his distribution and just well-rounded play, Graham, to what you've said, was really good. I think you also said a fit Gabriel Jesus, which is maybe the thing that will decide all of this, right? I mean, this was the first goal he scores in this game, the one in the 10th minute, is the first goal he scored in the Champions League in more than 2 years, right? And he just really hasn't played a lot of games. He started in cup competitions this year, but it doesn't seem like he has been fit, and that's because he's returning from a really long-term injury. And even beyond that, he's not had a particularly injury-free career. So I think a healthy Gabriel Jesus absolutely helps this team, although I imagine Arsenal would have preferred that to not be the case with some of the recruitment in the forward line. But the reality is he does make this team better when he is fit, whether that is in a starting role or whether it's 30-minute appearances off the bench, whatever that's going to look like. I just don't know that anybody can count on getting more of this from Gabriel Jesus, because I don't think they can count on getting more of him. But if he's healthy, Graham, I think we're absolutely on the same page here.
Yeah. I think it's also less of a he has to be in the starting 11 every single game if he's fit sort of situation. You do have the kind of luxury of rotating him in and out depending on your need, because I think he can be like the scrappy striker that you bring in when you're chasing a goal or you need to make something happen in the final 30 minutes, to Joe's point. But I think he can also be the striker that when you were playing a team that's going to be bunkered and like defending for the entire 90, he's going to be the striker who's like getting on the end of a deflected shot, as he does here, or getting on the end of a header that comes off the bar, as he does here. I feel like he brings you that variety and that just sort of killer instinct that you might need. And I think, again, speaks to the depth that Arsenal have been able to acquire and then utilize.
One more note on this game, Joe. In our show notes, you've posited Inter as a dark horse for this competition. Expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of what I said earlier. I just think they're pretty good at everything, where they're able to use the ball to break down a team. They're able to use the ball to attack in transition through that front two. And we kind of saw a glimpse of them creating a pseudo-transition moment, where really it's a possession moment, but they're so good on the ball that all of a sudden they're running downhill at you and you're on half and you don't know what happened. They're really good at that stuff. And with the defensive cover that they have naturally in their shape, I think they are a fairly resolute defensive team. Although, man, we gave Arsenal some credit on that set piece goal. That was horrific defending from Inter. Like, absolutely horrible defending from them. So it's not like there aren't some weaknesses here for Inter. But I just think they're a really talented team. I think they're an experienced team. They have the top-end quality, especially in the front line, to cause problems. They don't have the depth, which we saw in this game, and they don't have the breadth either of truly elite players to be a favorite. But every time I watch this team play, I am fairly convinced that they're a really good team. And on their day, I think they can absolutely beat anybody. And we know that because we saw it happen last year.
Yep. Joe, a thing that I've really come to enjoy from Inter, and this is not a new thing, it's been happening for a while, but like every single game, there's that one moment where the ball is played wide into like the left half space, and you just know DeMarco's running on to smash it as hard as he can. He has one of those here that is well saved by David Raya. But like, he has one of those almost every game, and he scores like half of them. So even just there, having DeMarco crash in the box is always kind of appointment viewing and very entertaining. Also entertaining, because I have to give credit where credit is due. Declan Rice comes on in the second half. 92nd minute, I think. So second minute of injury time.
I know where this is going.
The yellow card. He gets his necessary suspension, so he'll be suspended for their final game. But they've already got the top spots locked up, as Ryan said earlier. A really smart and useful yellow card there to clear the decks ahead of the knockout round. I am always fascinated if that's a thing that he's briefed on as he comes on, or if at some point someone is. I'm going to assume not yelling, because I feel like that could get you into trouble. But at some point, somebody has to kind of have a word like, hey, man, we don't have much time left. Pull somebody back. Get that yellow card.
That's surely a direction he's received. That's Mourinho to Sergio Ramos' behaviour, isn't it? Surely he's done that. Because even the commentator on the feed was like, and he's done it. He's got his yellow card.
But I'm just wondering, like...
Shirt over the head celebration.
Woo! But I'm just wondering, like, is that something he's briefed on as he subs on? Or is it something that somebody has to remind him of? Because if you're going to do that, I guess you do it when you know the game is kind of over, so you don't risk getting a second yellow. Yeah. But it was still a moment for me of like, did he remember to do that? Or did somebody have to have a word 10 seconds before he did it?
I think at this level, these players know, even before they arrive at the stadium, what their status is. Like, I think they'll have, especially with Arsenal, who are like the quintessential details-led team right now, I think all their players know if they're on a book or not.
Now I am, with the details in mind, I am now picturing Mikel Arteta as they're walking off. He puts around Declan Rice and then gives him a 30-minute monologue on the better ways to get a professional yellow. I feel like that's some notes he would have received.
Yeah. There'll be some light bulbs in the dressing room, no doubt.
Drawn on a whiteboard.
Very good. Well, Inter and Arsenal, there we go. It feels like both these teams could definitely end up with a trophy of some kind, Graham, at the end of this season.
Can I just very quickly go into the permutations? Because on the Inter side of thing, I'm trying to work it out myself here as we're talking. So they're 14th in the table. They're on 12 points. So they've still got some work to do to get into the last 16, to get into the last 8. But I believe they are secure in that last, in the final 24. So they are going through to the round of 24. Arsenal, we've mentioned they've locked up a top 2 space by winning this game. I didn't know this until last night. I think this must be a new thing for this season. The tangible benefit of that result of finishing in the top 2 is that Arsenal are now confirmed to have the second leg of every knockout round that they play at home. I don't remember that last season. So that's why that, I think that's why that keeps getting mentioned, is because there's actually something to come from it for Arsenal.
Oh wow. Who is that, just the top 2 that get that, or?
I believe so, yeah. It was in an Athletic article. I didn't write it, so it's accurate.
In that case, it must be. Very good. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at Liverpool's victory at Marseille, a historic win for Bodo Glimt, and all the rest. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Champions League review. Let's go to the Stade Velodrome. It's not a velodrome, but it's a very nice stadium indeed. Marseille 0, Liverpool 3. Easy for me to say. A good Liverpool performance in this one. A great one, some might argue. Dominic Szoboszlai with the low road he took on the free kick there. Very nicely done indeed. An own goal. And Cody Gakpo with the third for Liverpool. Mo Salah returning post-AFCON as well. Also, Graham, can we, before we get to the soccer, can we talk about the tifo that the Marseille fans had behind the goal?
That.
A Beatles-themed tifo for the arrival of Liverpool. Très bien. No notes. Very good.
Sorry, I do have a question about that tifo. I saw it as well. So are they celebrating the arrival of the opponent? That doesn't make any sense. Like, it looks cool and all. That's neat. And it's like, oh, that's kind of fun and interesting. But it doesn't make any sense.
It's not intimidating anyway.
They were trying to unsettle them, Joe.
Liverpool. Yeah,
They were trying to fill the heads with questions and distract them. That's what it was.
I was wondering
worth
if
a treat.
I was wondering because I cannot read French. Obviously, I was hoping the words underneath the tifo were like, "We love your music, but we hate your football," or "We just hate you as a football team." But no, it just seemed to be welcoming and kind, which is not always the way Marseille ultras tend to be by reputation.
I also can't read French, Taylor, but I think it was the Rolling Stones were better. I think
We prefer the
that's
Rolling
actually
Stones, is what it said. Yes, correct. Yeah, very good. Graham, the game.
This was one of Liverpool's best results of the season so far, and the Champions League has actually given them some refuge this season because it does look like they're going to go through as one of the top 8 teams. I can't fully explain it, but it feels like they've had more control in most Champions League games this season, I guess with the notable exception of that thumping at home to PSV. And I didn't think this performance was much different to the one against Inter Milan when Liverpool had real security. I think in this game they sort of turned the dial on the verticality, and Ekitike was like knifing in behind from the left side. They had width from the fullbacks. So I guess in that sense, maybe the better comparison would be the Eintracht Frankfurt game, where Frimpong in particular in this match was essentially playing as like a very high and advanced wing back, as we saw for the second goal. And I really liked the setup that Liverpool had in this game. They had that box midfield. I think you get some security from that. You have McAllister and was it Gravenberch as the other deep line midfielder, who are then threading passes through to Wirtz and Szoboszlai. They can get on the turn. You've got the width from the two fullbacks, who are basically wing backs. The defensive line has protection from the middle being clogged up with so many central midfielders. And then you have Ekitike and Salah as floating forwards with the freedom to start runs from wide. And yeah, I just think right now this is the best version of Liverpool. And they still have their weaknesses, and there's question marks primarily over how does Alexander Isak fit into this setup. Obviously he's injured right now, but when he comes back from injury. But right now in the Champions League, this seems to be working quite well for Liverpool.
Yeah. I agree. I think it fits a lot of the personnel in this team. We talked about all the way back in the summer window, how do they fit both of these high-flying fullbacks into this team, especially if there isn't enough depth at center back to be able to accommodate a back three look, which there's not in this team. How do you pull that off? Well, having some sort of narrow attacking shape and depending on the fullbacks for the width and keeping an extra defensive midfielder closer to the center backs maybe gets you there. And it seemed like it got Liverpool there in this game. I enjoyed that look as well. I also just enjoyed the tactical makeup of this game. And I suppose I should have expected it from a De Zerbi team. But this was not the traditional giant club faces, still Marseille, huge club of course, but obviously not as good as Liverpool when it comes to talent. This was not a giant club versus something less than that, in that the giant club has all the ball and the other team sits in their own half. This was the other way around, where De Zerbi's Marseille, again, as we probably should have expected, dominated possession for huge chunks of this game. And they were trying to find answers against Liverpool's defensive shape. We've kind of talked about the attacking benefits of the structure that Arne Slot used in this game. But it was, I think, first and foremost sort of designed, or at least as it played out, to fluster Marseille's possession setup, where Marseille were possessing in this 3-2-5 shape. And Liverpool had their front two, which we've already talked about, of Salah and Ekitike. And then behind those guys, they had Szoboszlai and Wirtz. Now, Szoboszlai and Wirtz were marking the double pivot for Marseille. So Marseille is 3-2-5. Let's remember, Liverpool's attacking midfielders are man-to-man against the midfield two from Marseille. And then you've got, in the front line, Ekitike and Salah, man-to-man against the outside center backs from Marseille. So there's one player who's unmarked in Marseille's build-up unit, and that's their central center back, Leonardo Bellardi. And basically, Bellardi had as much time as he wanted to pick out any pass that he wanted, but Liverpool were man-to-man, not just in the double pivot, but they were man-to-man everywhere, with Van Dijk floating as the +1 in the middle of the back line. And so it almost felt like, I don't know, Taylor, maybe this is only experience that you and I have had, like you're playing football on Thanksgiving morning or something. You're playing football at some point, and there's just no rusher for the quarterback. So the quarterback is just trying to pick out one of his receivers who gets open. And so really what this game turned into, which I thought was fascinating, it was Marseille's wide receivers, where everybody but Bellardi was a wide receiver, against Liverpool's cornerbacks. And really Marseille couldn't find the receivers near often enough, or at least they found the first pass, but then they actually needed to lateral the ball 12 times to get down the field, and that's where the analogy falls apart on itself. But they didn't actually progress to create meaningful chances, and Liverpool took advantage of that. They had Ekitike had a goal in the first half that was called back for offside, and he was constantly flirting with running in behind, and Liverpool were very okay with picking off the first or second pass that Marseille tried to throw. I'm still torturing this analogy. I'm just not going to.
Joe, I'm all in on this analogy.
And then counterattacking the other way. It was brilliant to watch. Like, it was actually so much fun to watch in such a weird
game because you don't see setups like this very often. And I thought it really suited Liverpool and the transition profiles that they have in this team. Good, disciplined performance from them. I enjoyed it.
That's outstanding analysis, Joe, and really informative. I love your way of explaining it. It does beg the question: would you trust, if we did this again, if we rolled it back, Bellardi on the ball or Kyler Murray throwing the ball? Who do you have more faith in to find somebody open?
Bellardi, welcome to the Arizona Cardinals,
That's
pal.
what I figured.
Let's do this.
Same question, Graham.
Yeah, that guy. Welcome to the Isotopes, pal.
Yep. Crushed it.
That was right.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. While we're doing American stuff,
Right
I'll do
sport, too.
Yeah, 100%. Right sport, right shaped ball. Everything was exactly how it was supposed to be. While we're on the topic of American things, Tim Weah started on the right side for Marseille in this game, basically functioning as a right wing back. Dude was invisible. I mean, I suppose he wasn't a problem defensively.
How dare you forget his one shot in the second half that was deflected wide for a corner? That was outstanding work.
And actually, that's the one moment that I had down for Weah that was quite good. Good combination play in the 66th minute. Shot goes out for a corner. He just didn't do anything. And that was a broader problem for Marseille because basically their one attacking real method once they broke the first Liverpool structure was Mason Greenwood hitting a switch to nobody because Liverpool had marking all across the back line plus Van Dijk. So Weah didn't provide that. Traore didn't provide that on the other wing. Greenwood was hitting switches to nobody. There was one moment where Greenwood releases, I believe it was Traore, and there's a dangerous chance there for Marseille. But they just didn't have the individual pieces once they got into good spots, which they did on occasion. And Weah was part of that. Like, he just didn't stand out in this game in any way whatsoever.
I think some of that relates to the issues Marseille had with Bellardi on the ball, Joe, because one thing Weah did a lot in this game was get into an advanced position and then go like this.
Yep.
That was me throwing my hands in the air, listeners, because Marseille would turn the ball over in not really ideal spots, usually in the middle and usually closer to their own goal, so that now Weah, when he is trying to make a play, is 20, 30, 40 yards behind the play and is sometimes trying to catch up. I think sometimes jogging back thinking, this is not my responsibility. I did not give this ball away. Someone else can figure it out. And so in that way, I feel like he routinely would get into the spots he was supposed to be in, but then possession would break down. The ball wouldn't find him in time. Or as the game went on, Mason Greenwood would get more agitated and start dropping deeper, carrying forward, and then trying to get shots of his own. It felt like he kind of recognized like maybe there could be something there, Greenwood. And I thought he had some good moments and some kind of electric moments, but I think overall not quite enough, as the scoreline would attest.
Were we expecting to see Mo Salah back so soon?
I wasn't.
No.
I was surprised that he went straight into the lineup. I think he'd only had one full training session after returning from AFCON. I thought it was kind of a mixed performance from him. Like, obviously he played his role in the setup that we've outlined, and I think we all liked from Liverpool. He looked sharp in some moments. He has that little flick from across at the near post, makes the near post run, and it lands on top of the net. A couple other nice moments, but he wasn't overly involved, which was kind of, I think he had like 23 touches in the game, which ranked as one of the lowest for a Liverpool player. And that was kind of the situation before he went off to AFCON as well. So it's only one game, but I do kind of wonder how much the situation has changed for him.
We had the greatest Trivela of the week in the Arsenal game when Martinelli plays in Gyökeres with an incredible Trivela.
Oh yeah, that was good.
And we had the worst Trivela of the week with Mohamed Salah in this game when he goes for the left-footed Trivela when he's in on goal and hits it 20 yards wide, I want to say. Not a great chance from him. Not a good take from him, rather.
To be fair, he's been playing on a team for the last few weeks that isn't used to scoring, so maybe he's just out of...
There is that.
There is that. Very well. All right, well, Liverpool, as noted, are doing well in the phasing at this point. They're in fourth position, but there is 3 points between third place and 15th place in the Champions League phasing at the moment, so we'll get to that a bit later. But there's a lot of movement that could happen over the next round of games. Graham, if we could talk about what I think is the shock of the tournament so far, Bodo Glimt 3. Yeah. Manchester City 1. Surely one of the biggest shocks. It's going to be in those lists that you and I will eventually write again about top Champions League shocks. Yeah. It's going to be in there. Obviously, the Norwegian side of Debutants, they're playing on their artificial field. It was 15 degrees Fahrenheit, so about -8 or 9 in real degrees. Bodo Glimt hadn't won a match in the main stage of the competition before Manchester City came to town, and they absolutely took them apart in this one. Very famous result. How did this happen, Graham?
It was incredible to watch. I watched this one live and probably watched this one with the most interest because I just couldn't believe really what I was seeing. It was no fluke that Bodo Glimt won this game 3-1. Man City obviously had more of the ball, but Bodo Glimt were just knifing in behind them repeatedly, and really could have scored more. Like Jens Petter Hauge hits the bar in the second half with a shot. He was absolutely incredible, scores the best goal of the game. But I just want to make sure, in terms of the broad story here, I want to make sure we give Bodo their flowers because they are a miracle of a team and a club. I'm sure we've touched on this in the past because they've been around these last few seasons. But Bodo Glimt, they were a lower league team in Norway until not so long ago. They play in the Arctic Circle. They're from this small town that really should not be able to support a club at this level. They don't have any serious financial backing. There's no like Norwegian oil billionaire behind them or anything like that. They're not part of a multi-club ownership group. But somehow, over the last few years, they have become the dominant force in Norwegian football. And they're also making, season on season, they're making a real impact in Europe because you're right, Ryan, this was their first one in the Champions League proper. But a few seasons ago, they thumped Jose Mourinho's Roma. Last season, they made the semi-finals of the Europa League and were competitive against Spurs in that game. This, however, was their greatest night, and it was fully deserved. I think there's big questions about City's. I know they've got injuries right now, and you've got poor Max Elaine, 20-year-old Max Elaine in that team who frankly shouldn't be in this. He's been kind of over-promoted through circumstance. He had a terrible night. But nonetheless, you're still talking about a Man City team that's starting Erling Haaland and Donnarumma and Rodri, who gets sent off in this game, and they clearly had enough talent to win this match, and Bodo Glimt really humbled them. So it's probably one of the most memorable games of the Champions League so far this season.
Graham, I think that's really
Taylor.
useful. So I just wanted to make sure, because Graham and I talked about this before we recorded, and Graham had a thing that he said he definitely wanted to say about this game, and so I just texted him to make sure he remembered to say it. So Graham, if you want to take it away, it's in the Slack. It was the exact quote that you said about this game and how it played out the way it did.
I told you in confidence that Manchester United smashed City's confidence this week, and that allowed Bodo Glimt to take advantage. All credit to Michael Carrick. That was not meant for air.
But now it's there, and we all know. Thank you, Graham. Joe,
Graham,
you were saying?
I have another question that is far less important. Who's the Bodo Glimt player, Graham, who you think like really popped in this game? Like, is there somebody that you think, oh wow, this probably did something for Bodo Glimt in terms of generating them some transfer revenue?
I mean, Jens Petter Hauge, he's the guy who, Football Manager, people will know Jens Petter Hauge. He's been at AC Milan and he's been at Eintracht Frankfurt. He started at Bodo Glimt, so he's had like his big move and he's come back to Bodo, and didn't really work for him down in Italy and Germany. But he is clearly the most talented player in this team. I mean, Kasper Holf, they all kind of have similar second names. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them correctly.
You said it with confidence, though, Graham. I was totally with it.
If you say it with confidence, then people think you're pronouncing it correctly. But he was kind of like the big attacking focal point in this game, who gets a couple goals, and the second one in particular, kind of like a nodded header at the back post. But he was impressive as well. But just the general approach of Bodo, where they are hassling and harrying City, and there was a couple of times when they would send a moonball up to use that term again on this show, a moonball up into the sky, and because it's the artificial pitch, they would all then rush the bounce, because obviously it bounces. That's what happened to Max Elaine for the second goal. Like, he has to wait for the ball to come back down, by which time there's two Bodo players around him and they swarm him. Yeah. So they know what they are. It's really, really impressive to watch.
Well, they're closer to the moon as well. They're in the Arctic Circle. Science tells me that, right? So it's they're working the advantage there, Taylor.
I'll tell you this. If nobody signs Bodo Glimt's captain, they're really failing to do their due diligence. Because how do you not sign a center back named Odin? I feel like that needs to be on a Premier League team very, very soon.
So that Baltimore need to sign him.
Baltimore Odin?
Odin's Ravens. That's
Odin's
new.
Ravens. No.
Didn't
I'll give it
All right.
Sorry, Ryan.
The other player was
the
Blomberg.
Wire?
He is. He's very impressive as well. He was part of like the front two along with Hull, if that's how you pronounce that. Blomberg at least is different. But yes, they're all very impressive.
Very good. Excellent stuff. Congratulations to Bodo Glimt. History made. I just love results like that, because that's the kind of thing where, as a fan of a small team, it's the sort of game you talk about 20 years later. This might fade from our memories quickly, but for them it'll be like history for them. And Rodri got sent off, right, as well in this one.
That's right.
And like, I've heard this said elsewhere, but that when you're a fan of a small team and the Ballon d'Or gets sent off against you, that's as good as a goal. Like,
Yep.
as a fan, to
It was
see
so
that happen
stupid
as
as well. He
Yeah.
got 2 yellow cards within 53 seconds, I think. Second one in particular was a real wet wipe of a booking. So
Check off the bingo card.
Icy wipe? Very cold there. Yeah. Anyway, there was another big shock. I'll quickly mention Sporting Lisbon 2, Paris Saint-Germain 1. Luis Suarez not that one with a brace. Cavaradonna with the consolation. PSG had more than 70% possession. They had 28 shots. They had 3 goals ruled out by offside and fouls, but somehow didn't come away from Portugal with a win. So not a good one for PSG. Perhaps not consequential, although we will get there maybe later on in the episode as well.
It might be. It sounds like Luca Chevalier, the goalkeeper, has come in for the majority of the blame from his manager and from like PSG in general. That's what the messaging seems to be, that they've tried to protect him. They've tried to, like make sure that he had the confidence. And I think it was Luis Enrique saying, but, we're not sure what's going to happen from now on. So it seems like maybe the finger is being pointed in the goalkeeping position, and we'll see if there's any sort of changing or experimentation there in the near future.
yeah, I mean, it's worth kind of pointing out the pressure that PSG are starting to come under. The front page of L'Equipe after this game, I think, translated to one big mess. And they're not just talking about this game. PSG are not top of Ligue 1 right now. Like we're coming into February right now, and Lens are a point ahead of them in the table. So I'm old enough to remember when PSG came out of the league phase last year and just blew everyone away and won the Champions League. That could happen again, but they haven't been great so far this season. I do think there are some question marks.
More Beatles tifos, I think, is what could help them. It's,
That's what they need.
It didn't help their Ligue 1 counterparts, to be fair. Let's take one more quick break. When we come back, the rest of the games and a look ahead to the Fatening. Sure, back soon, even. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Champions League roundup. Hey, Arvelo Arbeloa had his first Champions League win as the coach of Real Madrid, a 6-1 win over Monaco. Pretty dominant. Kylian Mbappe scoring twice. Jude Bellingham also hitting the spot. Joe, what can we report from this one? How did Flo Balogun do?
Balogun was fine. I think he acquitted himself fairly well against a team that was obviously better than his team. He started and played 73 minutes. His whole play was pretty good in this game, I thought, playing as a 9. Earned a bunch of fouls, didn't get really any service to take actual shots anywhere near the goal. But I thought he was good. He had a couple of turnovers, a couple of moments where I think his hold-up play could have been sharper. But he was fine. He was certainly better than Tim Weah was against a really strong opponent, just to go back to the last segment. Not trying to bag on Tim Weah. But he wasn't spectacular, but he was pretty good to solid. Madrid just battered Monaco in this game. Mbappe scored 5 minutes in. It was 2-0 by halftime, 5-0 before Monaco pulled one back, which was a hilarious way that they pulled one back. It was Dani Ceballos losing the ball in basically the worst spot imaginable. And all of a sudden, it's 5-1. Woohoo. Madrid were just so good in this game. The second goal, it's Mbappe's second goal as well, is unreal. It's coast to coast. It's Camavinga keeping the play alive with what might be the play of the match day. It's just a filthy flick that he pulls off to get out of pressure and to advance the ball at the same time. Goulet then threads the ball through to Mbappe, and it's beautiful. It's Goulet, I think maybe to Vinny Jr. actually, and Mbappe finishes off the sequence. But it is so pretty, and that kind of defined Madrid in this game. I thought their setup was quite interesting. Mbappe played through the middle as the 9. Mastantuono played on the right, and Vinny Jr. played on the left. Worked fine. Mbappe produced. Vinny Jr. had a decent game. Like it all did come together for them. They had the chance to make some changes at halftime, and the game was over by then anyway. So it wasn't as if they were totally locked into that setup for the full 90. But I thought it was a promising performance, a game that Madrid should have won and should have looked good in, and they did exactly that.
Indeed. Yeah, Monaco, not so hot, I would suggest,
Nope.
in this one as well, by contrast. Tottenham 2, Borussia Dortmund 0. A very much needed result for Thomas Frank here. It's probably bought him a week or two, I'd imagine. Romero and Solanke with the goals against 10-man Dortmund. Taylor, what do we make of this one?
I think this was a really impressive performance by Tottenham, even before the red card. And that does really kill this game off. And I was bummed because I was locked into this one. I was excited to see how it was going to play out. It felt like either team had the potential to win it. Either team narratively needed to win it or very much wanted to win it. But it was Spurs who looked like much sharper and much more creative and had just many more ideas in the attacking third than Dortmund did. Even if it's a Romero goal that opens scoring, it was still Tottenham getting numbers in the box, getting possession in the box, finding open passes, getting good shots, getting good looks, getting the lead, and then the red card to Svensson, to Daniel Svensson, the left wing back in this game. Like, feel bad for him. He's a youngster, relatively youngster. I know for Joe, he's an old veteran at 23. But
grizzled even.
You could see that he did not intend like the harshness of the challenge, but I think was up for the game, was up for the opportunity, came flying in, was punished by VAR accordingly, and at that point, with how dominant Tottenham had already been, it was pretty clear that they would not be getting back into this one, Dortmund, and they did not.
Yeah, they had a good start, Tottenham, and so I guess we'll never know if they would have been able to sustain it. But the fact, even with 10 men, the question mark was, are Spurs going to press home this advantage? Because we've seen that so many times this season. I know that's one of the biggest complaints that Spurs fans have, is there have been games where they've started well and they've gone a goal up, and then it feels like they play for the 1-0 win and they're not able to do it. So this felt like a little bit of relief for Thomas Frank, not just in terms of the result, which quite clearly he needed, but the performance as well. And it turns out a trip to Dr. Dortmund is even more effective than a trip to Dr. Tottenham.
Oh, rival doctors. I like this. Yeah, that's interesting. I think we've contended before that Dortmund are the Tottenham of the Bundesliga with their ups and downs and their Dortmundiness, shall we say?
I know we've talked about Spurs at length at points this season. I really did not realize how many injuries they are dealing with. I feel like that should be factored into the Thomas Frank math little bit more, because I went looking for Mohamed Kudus because I expected he would start this game, forgetting that I guess he's out until like April with a muscle injury. So add him to the lengthy list of injuries, and maybe that helps explain some of the kind of erratic form of Spurs, but I doubt that will be too much comfort for their supporters.
It's definitely a factor. I think Lucas Bergvall, I was reading yesterday, I think he comes off in this game. I think he's picked up another injury, so that's another one in the treatment room. Dominic Solanke being back for this game, I think that's a big deal for Spurs. I kind of think that's been underplayed. There's been a lot of chat about Madison and Kulusevski, rightly so, being out for the season, but I think Spurs have missed Solanke a lot because they don't have anyone else who can take a pass under pressure and do something with it in the final third. Like Richarlison, who's been playing that position for most of the season, is more of a chaos merchant. He's not someone who's actually going to get you up the pitch and absorb a pass and bring teammates into the play in the final third. So I'm a big fan of Dominic Solanke, similar to Gabriel Jesus. Just need to get him fit and on the pitch. That's the big issue.
There we go. Copenhagen 1, Napoli 1. Scott McTominay with the first half header in this one. Not quite enough to get it through for Napoli, who are 25th in the table, outside of the playoff spots at the moment with one game left. Can Conte do it?
I think they've got Chelsea in their final game as well. So that's some heavy narrative, Conte against his former team to get through.
There we go. That'll be an exciting one for next week. Olympiacos 2, Bayer Leverkusen 0. Leverkusen are 19th in the table now with 9 points. Olympiacos are 1 point behind. The Olympiacos dream lives on. Bayer Leverkusen not having a great time of it, evidently, at the moment either. Ajax got a win at Villarreal. They got a late winner. They came from behind with that one. They are keeping their hopes alive as well. Most hopes are alive. There's only 4 teams who are out at this point. Ajax are 31st with 2 wins. Villarreal are now out. They're one of those 4. 0 wins and 1 draw for Villarreal at this point. Club Brugge, they're also still alive. They got a 4-1 win on Tuesday at FC Kairat. Cool. They're eliminated as well, our Kairat.
Did anyone see Kairat? So it went 4-0 and then it was a consolation goal to make it 4-1, and it scored in like stoppage time. The Kairat player goes absolutely nuts, like takes his shirt off and he wasn't spinning it around his head. He was holding his name up, like the Messi to the crowd. Like, dude, it's 4-1. You've lost.
Let him have it, Graham. It's all
okay.
Good. All right. Galatasaray 1, Atleti 1 from Wednesday. Own goal from Atleti's Marcus Llorente, getting Galatasaray the draw in that one. That one seemed like one of those big atmosphere games, the Cauldron. Atleti going from their Cauldron to the Galatasaray one. Very partisan crowd, obviously, there. Karabag with a 3-2 win over Eintracht Frankfurt as well. Another shock, I suppose. A 94th minute winner as well for Karabag in this one. Eintracht Frankfurt, they're out too. They're having a bit of a rough season. Obviously, they parted with Dino Topmuller, their coach, last weekend as well. Not doing super well in the league either. But yeah, big one for Karabag. Congrats to them. Athletic Club got a 3-2 win at Atalanta. Bayern Munich with a 2-0 win over Union Saint-Gilloise. Harry Kane with a brace and a missed penalty. And Kim Min-jae getting sent off in that one as well. Chelsea, no pathos for Chelsea with a 1-0 win over Paphos, but Tish from Moises Caicedo with the goal in that one. And Paphos are still technically alive in their first Champions League campaign. Up in Turin, Juventus with a 2-0 win over Benfica. Who got one of the goals, Joe? Who was it?
Weston McKennie, who's now scored in 3 straight Champions League games. There isn't a U.S. player playing better ball than Weston McKennie right now. There are probably not that many midfielders in Serie A playing better ball than McKennie right now. I mean, he had a brilliant goal in this game to basically kill it off. Although it still wasn't the best moment. The best moment was a Pavlidis penalty for Benfica that went, I think, basically out for a throw-in. That was iconic. But McKennie's goal was iconic in its own way. He and Jonathan David combine basically just outside the top of the box, right in zone 14. And McKennie's, the ball he receives from David is a little bit behind him. He manages to collect it, fend off 2 different Benfica players, then combine with David again, basically 1-2ing. He sends himself through into the box and finishes. He's just so calm right now, McKennie. He's so undisturbed by basically any form of pressure. He's contributing with goals and assists. He's ranging. He's winning the ball. He's doing some stuff deeper. The dude is in maybe the best form of his life right now, and it's been so much fun to watch.
Grande McKennie. Very good stuff indeed. And that penalty you mentioned, Joe, for Mourinho's Benfica.
Delightful.
One of the worst penalties we've seen in the last 7 days. Maybe it's right up there with, obviously, Brahim Diaz. But obviously, he slips over.
It might be worse than Brahim Diaz's. Not for the moment, I suppose. Like the context of Diaz's maybe makes it worse. But if you strip all that away, it might be worse.
I don't think I've ever seen a penalty that's wider of the mark. Should we say that?
So why?
Do we think Pavlidis is getting a kickback from Mourinho when he gets sacked and gets the Madrid job for the start of next season?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. 8%. Jose, I want 8%.
Yeah. But Jose going to Turin, obviously, as a former Inter manager, I'm sure he didn't love losing 2-0 in that one and having that be one of the talked about moments as well. And Benfica pretty much on their way out of this competition. They need a win to get into the playoffs. And their next game, Real Madrid. More narrative there coming next week as well. Newcastle 3, PSV 0. Eddie Howe's side are in the playoff spots. They've secured the playoff spots with that win. Very good for them. Graham, they look. This is another one where, like, I think they look very good, but the opponents also look very bad.
Yeah, but I think Newcastle made PSV look bad. I thought this was Newcastle at their best, and yeah, you're right, Ryan. Like, all 3 goals come from PSV errors to varying degrees. But I've spoken about this a few times. Newcastle at St James's Park in a big game can be an overwhelming experience for even like the most accomplished teams. And that's what it was for PSV, because Newcastle just hassled them at every possible opportunity. That front line of Wissa, Gordon and Barnes, all of them were absolutely outstanding. Harvey Barnes might want to chill out a little bit. Let's make sure he's on the right plane this summer, but he's got 5 goals in his last 5 games. And Johan Wissa as well, I thought was really impressive, not just because he scored, but because of the way he led the press. And I think because Voltemada has been so good, it's been kind of easy to forget that Newcastle also signed Johan Wissa in the summer. He's obviously been injured for a long time. But it's come into the team now, and he's maybe a more sort of orthodox penalty box presence than Voltemada, and he's also mobile, and as I say, he's good at pressing from the front. So yeah, he was great in this game, and Newcastle, they kind of forced those errors from PSV, who were quite poor.
Yeah. And last but not least, Slavia Prague 2, Barcelona 4. Fermin Lopez with a brace in that one. Slavia did have it at 2-2 at half time. They needed the win to stay in the competition, but they are, alas, one of the 4 eliminated now in the freezing cold, Graham, of the Czech capital there.
It was freezing cold, but as all Barcelona games are, this match was red hot. Never change, Barcelona. 2-2 at half time. Fermin Lopez getting them out of a little bit of hole with some just quality. He's so good. Like the second goal, the whip that he gets on the finish, the disguise that he has on that finish, the goalkeeper doesn't read it at all. It's a joke that if you were to list off the best Barcelona attacking players, he'd be like, what, 5th or 6th he would get to in their list? But for any other team, he's a superstar. And he's a bit of a superstar for this Barcelona team as well. The Olmo finish to make it 3-2 was absolutely outrageous as well. And this is just the stuff that makes Barcelona so good to watch. They are still consistently the most entertaining team in Europe. Still have question marks about whether this approach and the personnel within the approach can actually win them a Champions League. But it's fun to watch.
There we go. So that was the penultimate round of the Champions League, phasing, penultimate round, 7, etc. and so on. Only 4 teams of 36 have been eliminated at this point. The live table, when all 18 matches happen next week, is going to be wild.
Just a ball of yarn.
Yeah, it's a lot of movement. I don't know, as a neutral spectator, Taylor, how I feel about that, because it's going to be very hard to follow all of those games, very hard to see the permutations as
What
they
did we
evolve.
do last year? That's what I was trying to remember. We did something last year where we doesn't matter. Great podcasting. Can't remember, but it is hard and difficult, and we did something about it. We sure did.
I'm just going to monitor
that-
my
is that
14,000
an
Slack
indication-
updates from Graham as they come through.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, we had Graham Vision with his 13 TVs. Is your comment there, Joe, indicative of the fatigue that this phase might inspire? I'm feeling a bit of fatigue, if I'm honest, about the process here.
I think that's fair. I don't know exactly how much that applies to the audience. Like, I may feel some of that as well, but nobody's obligated beyond us and the other people that are covering this, which is a great job, to watch more of these games than they want to, right? So I suppose that is a privileged feeling that we can enjoy, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the Red Zone style Golazo show or whatever it is that we're getting next week. I'll be buckled in and ready to go.
It feels like there's less at stake this year than there was last year. Like last year we had PSG and Man City who were scraping towards the end of the league phase to get through. And now looking at the table, like, is there any big club likely to miss out? I guess Napoli would be the ones you would look at, but obviously the Antonio Conte curse is real, so you've got to factor that in. But yeah, it just feels like you absolutely have to, Taylor. I'm maybe feeling a little bit of that fatigue, Ryan, this season. I thought it was more entertaining last year. But how do you come up with a format that doesn't just result with the richest and the best teams getting through, no matter which order that you play the games or what the format is?
I know, Graham. You have a tournament where it's just the champions of each league, and you call it the Champions League. How's that?
No, can't do that. That's too futuristic, Ryan. They never did anything like that in the 60s.
I think if you put everybody into like groups of 4 and then had them play each other home and away, like you might be able to track it a little bit more easily and then see kind of who gets out of each group.
That could work.
And then you expand it to 48 teams and you host it over 6 continents and you have third place teams going through. And
Gianni Infantino just salivating right now.
I think I sound cynical, but I think on balance I do prefer this to the group stage format, even in its nascent format. But I just feel a bit overwhelmed when there's 18 games in a week, frankly, and there's a lot of permutations.
It still feels wrong having Champions League games in January. It feels a little bit unusual.
Yeah, it's supposed to be our respite before the 16 starts, right? Yeah, that's right. There we go. But we go on, and there will be more Champions League next week. That is it for the penultimate round. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Listener Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your services to this here podcast and to continental soccer.
You too.
Joe Barry, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And thank you, listener, for joining us on this one. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.